Dear students, welcome to my class. Today we are going to study the last concept in solid state, that is magnetic properties. In the previous class we had studied the types of semiconductors and their applications. Nowadays there are so many compounds made by combining two different elements to give a compound with electrical property. I want to tell that if you take 13th group of elements, these elements are mixed with 15th group of elements. Why 13th group is mixed with 15th? Because the valence of 13th group is 3 and the valence of 15th group is 5. Now find the average. 3 plus 5 by 2, that is nothing but 4. So here the valence is resembling the valence of silicon. The average valence is equals to the valence of silicon. So that many compounds have been prepared by combining elements of two different groups. For example, if you take in this group aluminum, that is combined with phosphorus of 15th group, or gallium of this group is combined with arsenic. So we get different properties with electric conductivity. Even this is done with other groups also. 12th group of elements are mixed with the 16th group of elements to get different conductors. For example, you can see that cadmium can be mixed with sulfur. This 12th group of elements, that is nothing but zinc, cadmium, mercury. Those can be mixed with sulfur, or that can be mixed with, for example, if you take mercury, it can be mixed with tellurium. These elements on combining, they will produce some compounds with electrical properties. But apart from this, what I am saying is, by mixing two elements we are getting new kind of conductors. Apart from this, some of the transition metal compounds also found to be having different types of electrical properties, different behavior. For example, if you take rhenium oxide, so this is a very good conductor and it resembles copper in its properties, in the sense electrical properties. But the transition elements compounds behave in different ways. That means some of the compounds may be conductors, but some of them are insulators also. For example, if you take a vanadium oxide or vanadium dioxide, these compounds will show conductor properties at one temperature, but when their temperature is changed, they will behave like insulators. What I am saying is, the electrical properties are of transition metal compounds are somewhat peculiar. They will behave in different ways. But the combination of these elements, 13th group with combining with 15th, or 12th group of elements combining with 14th group of elements, are getting properties of conductors. So these are newly designed compounds. So this is all about the electrical properties. Now we will go to today's concept, that is magnetic properties. So since in many years we are studying the magnetic properties, we know some substances will be attracted by magnet and some will not be attracted. But the attraction by the magnet is not common by all the materials. They will not be attracted equally. That depends upon their magnetic behavior. Why the substances having a magnetic behavior? First of all, for that, the basic cause is with the electron of an atom. If you take an electron, you all know that if it is the nucleus, the electron will be revolving. This is the electron and it will be revolving around the nucleus. So what is the major cause for magnetic properties of electrons is, the electron will have two kinds of motion. First one is the electrons revolve around the nucleus, so that will generate one kind of magnetic moment. And the second one is this electron. For example, if this is the electron, this electron revolve around its own axis. It is a spin, so its own spin is one motion and it is the orbital motion. It is revolving around the nucleus, giving rise to orbital motion. So if you take any nucleus, the electron will revolve around the nucleus. In addition to that, it will revolve around in its own axis. So because of these two moments, a magnetic momentum is generated in electrons. Because electron is a charged body, when it is under movement, it will have an electric field and a magnetic field also. But electron is considered as a very tiny magnet because the magnetic moment here is very small. So magnetic moment value lies around some 9.2 into 10 power minus 24 ampere meter square. So but this is very very small. But this magnetic moment is, though it is very small, but when you take substances, these electrons will give different kinds of magnetic behavior to the substances. Let us see what are the different properties of magnetic substances based on the electrons. So what is the chief cause for magnetic behavior of any substance? Electron, because electron will have two kinds of movement, that is movement around its own axis and revolution around the nucleus. Based on the magnetic properties, the substances have been classified into paramagnetic substances, diamagnetic substances, paramagnetic, diamagnetic, and the next class of compounds substances are ferromagnetic substances, and the next one is antiferromagnetic is the next one, and the last one that we are studying here is ferrimagnetic substances. So all the substances based on their magnetic properties have been divided into paramagnetic, diamagnetic, ferromagnetic, antiferromagnetic, and ferrimagnetic. Now let us see one by one what are these and what are the characteristics. The first one is paramagnetic substances. What is a paramagnetic substance and what are their characteristics? Let us see. A paramagnetic substance is a substance that is weakly attracted by the magnetic field. So external magnetic field, weakly attracted by the magnetic field. It is weakly attracted by the magnetic field. When we keep any paramagnetic substance in an applied magnetic field, so they will be attracted very weakly by the magnetic field. Not only that, their magnetic moments align or their magnetic moments orient in the direction of the magnetic field. So orientation is along the magnetic field direction, magnetic field. So they will take the direction of the magnetic field. Their magnetic moments will align in the direction of the magnetic field. But important thing is this is only temporary. So this paramagnetism is temporary. That means once that external field is removed, they will lose their magnetic behavior. So that is, it is temporary. And the major cause for paramagnetic behavior is the presence of unpaired electrons. So if any unpaired electrons are there, that will give paramagnetism. You all know that electron is chief cause all kinds of magnetic behavior. So unpaired electrons will give a magnetic moment. Paired electrons means magnetic momentum will be cancelled because the direction is opposite. So unpaired electrons presence gives paramagnetic behavior. Examples like ferric iron, or you can see Cu plus 2, or you can see Cr plus 3, or you can take some of the molecules like O2. These are all paramagnetic substances. So paramagnetic substances are weakly attracted by the magnetic field and they will orient along the direction of the magnetic field, and once the external magnetic field is removed, they will lose their magnetic behavior. And unpaired electrons are the chief cause for the paramagnetism, and these are the some ions and molecules that possess paramagnetic behavior. And let us go to the diamagnetic. These diamagnetic substances are weakly repelled by the magnetic field. Here weakly attracted. The substances which are weakly repelled by magnetic field are called as diamagnetic substances. Actually here they will align in the opposite direction to the magnetic field. So align opposite to the magnetic field or orient opposite to the direction of magnetic field. So the major important thing is these will orient in the opposite direction. They are repelled by the external magnetic field weakly, and they take the direction in the opposite direction to the magnetic field. And what is the reason for it? Absence of unpaired electrons or presence of paired electrons are cause for it. Presence of paired electrons, because all are paired electrons. Once electrons are paired up, their magnetic moments will be cancelled. So that paired electrons are chief cause for diamagnetic behavior. So you can see some molecules like water, benzene, these are all diamagnetic. C6H6 is the benzene, NaCl, this will possess a diamagnetic character. So what are diamagnetic substances? That are weakly repelled by the magnetic field and they orient in the opposite direction to the magnetic field. And importantly, the absence of unpaired electrons, that is that have only paired electrons, that is a chief cause for the diamagnetism, and it is present in molecules like water, benzene, where there are no unpaired electrons. Now let us move to the next magnetic property, that is ferromagnetic property. First one is para, second one is dia, and the third one is ferromagnetic substances. What are ferromagnetic substances? Again here, the substances which are strongly attracted by the magnetic field are called as ferromagnetic substances. So the substances which are strongly attracted by the magnetic field are called as ferromagnetic substances. And one more important thing, when the magnetic field is kept, they align in the direction of the magnetic field, and here the magnetism is also permanent. But what is the reason for first of all ferromagnetism? To explain ferromagnetism, if you take metals, metals will have metal ions. These ions are grouped together, and the group of ions, small group of ions, is called as domains. The magnetic domains are nothing but the ions here, and those are also called as dipoles, because if you take a metal ion, that will have a positive charge because it is losing electrons. At the same time, electrons will be moving on one way because it is losing, it is moving to one end, giving a negative charge, and one end positive charge is formed. So that these can be considered as dipoles, or you can say it as the group of ions in the metals are known as domains. So here the domains are there. These domains, when you keep in the external magnetic field, these will align in the direction of the magnetic field. So all are aligning in the direction of the magnetic field. So this is the chief cause for ferromagnetic substance. In ferromagnetic substance, as I told, the domains will align in only one direction. So look here, all are in one direction only, so that their net magnetic momentum will be increased. That is why they are strongly attracted by the magnetic field, and this magnetism is permanent. That means once, even if you remove the external magnetic field, that is permanently magnetized, the magnetism will not be lost. So this is all about the ferromagnetism. So in ferromagnetic substances, when they are exposed to external field, the domains arranged in the direction of the magnetic field, and they will have high net magnetic moment, and they will be strongly attracted by the field. So if you see certain examples like iron, cobalt, nickel, these will have magnetic properties. Even chromium oxide, these are all have ferromagnetic properties. Now let us move to the next one. Next one is anti-ferromagnetic substances. Anti-ferromagnetic substances. If you see the title here, Anti means it is opposite, it seems. Of course, it is true. Anti-ferro. For example, ferro means you have seen the domains here. I will write the alignment of the domains here. Look here, this is the alignment of the domains here. So what is the difference here? Here in ferromagnetic substance, all the domains are arranged in one direction. But here also, the alignment is there, but they are aligned oppositely but equal in number. So one is aligned in this direction, other one is taking the opposite direction. Equal in number, but they are aligned in the opposite direction. So these substances are called as a anti-ferromagnetic substance. But the thing is, here also net magnetic moment will become 0, because the number of domains are arranged in opposite directions is equal, so that there is a cancellation of the magnetic moment one by the other, so that net magnetic moment will become 0. So anti-ferro is very simple to remember, equal but in the opposite direction here. In ferro in the same direction, but here equal and opposite direction. Usually if you see certain compounds like MnO or MnO2, or even if you take iron oxide FeO, Fe2O3, this will all be examples of anti-ferromagnetic substances. Now let us go for the last one. Last one is ferrimagnetic substances. Last one is ferrimagnetic substances. To understand this, I will draw again the domains here. So in ferrimagnetic substances, I am drawing the domains here. See here, this is the arrangement of the domains. What you can see here, here also they are oppositely aligned. Please remember that even in ferromagnetic substances also, once the magnetization takes place, there is a proper orientation of the domains. They are aligned in one direction, and that will remain permanent even if you remove the external magnetic field. They are random, but now after alignment they are in only one direction. But here you can see there is no any order. Some ions are oriented in one direction, but opposite here. Only two directions. So some are in one direction and some other are in the opposite direction. But the number is not equal. Unequal number of domains arranging in parallel and anti-parallel direction give rise to ferrimagnetism. So ferrimagnetism is due to that unequal number. Here you can see that equal in number, but here it is unequal in number. If you see compounds like ferrites, some compounds like ferrites, Fe3O4, or ferrite means you can take Mg, Fe2O4. These are all ferrimagnetic substances. But here magnetic moment exists, because here it is not completely cancelled. Here completely cancelled by equal and opposite number, but here it is unequal. So this is all about the magnetic properties of the substances. So para, weakly attracted and it is temporary, and diamagnetic, weakly repelled, and in ferromagnetism all the domains will align along the direction of the magnetic field, and it is produces strong magnetic moment. In anti-ferromagnetism, equal number of domains arranged in opposite directions, and in ferrimagnetism unequal number with parallel and anti-parallel orientation will be there. So we have to remember the examples, those are very important. So with this we have completed the last concept, that is magnetic properties of the substances. Now let us deal with some multiple choice questions. So let us start some multiple choice questions what we have understood. First one, according to band theory, which of the materials have a large forbidden zone? So large forbidden zone means large. It is the energy gap between the valency band and conduction band. Where it will be large? clearly direct concept, that is nothing but insulators. In insulators the gap is large, and in semiconductors it is so small. In conductors, valency band and conduction band will be overlap. So the option is so here conductors, semiconductors, insulators, all. So C is the right option, insulators. Let us move to the next multiple choice question. Pure silicon is p-type semiconductor, n-type semiconductor, extrinsic semiconductor, intrinsic semiconductor. Here pure silicon is known as the intrinsic semiconductors. If it is doped with the impurity, then it is called extrinsic semiconductor, either p-type or n-type based on the dopant. So that it is called as pure silicon is called as intrinsic semiconductor. Intrinsic semiconductor. Now let us move to next multiple choice question. In conductors, the conductivity range is, it is also memory based question. In conductors, what is the range of conductivity? What is the range? We know that it is between 10 power 4 to 10 power 7 ohm inverse meter inverse. That is the range of conduct. So here first option itself is the correct one. That is 10 power 4 to 10 power 7 ohm inverse meter inverse. Let us go to the next multiple choice question. When pure silicon is doped with arsenic, the type of semiconductor form. So what we are taking here, silicon is taking, it is doped with arsenic. Arsenic, we know that it is a pentavalent impurity. So what we get, a pentavalent impurity is added, we are going to get n-type. Trivalent means we are going to get p-type. But pentavalent impurity gives rise to n-type of extrinsic semiconductor. So what is the option here? P-type, n-type, both none. So what is correct here? N-type of semiconductor. Now let us move to the next objective question. Majority carriers in a p-type of semiconductors. So here p-type of semiconductors are given. So in p-type, you know that the holes are the electron holes are only holes. Holes are the majority conductors, carriers. Because if you take n-type, there are free electrons. In p-type, there is a surplus of electrons. That is nothing but holes. So holes are the majority carriers in case of a p-type of semiconductors. So here first option is electrons, second one is ions, third one is holes, and last one is all of these. So what is the right option? C is the right option, that is holes. Next, sixth one, silicon or germanium is doped with dash impurity to form a p-type of semiconductor. So here silicon or germanium is doped with which type of impurity? We want to get p-type. P-type means which type of impurity? A trivalent impurity. Let us see the option. Trivalent, pentavalent, tetravalent and a divalent. Clearly we know that when you add a trivalent impurity, that gives a deficiency of the electron, giving rise to a p-type of semiconductor. So what is the correct option for this sixth question? That is a p-type of semiconductors. So p-type will be formed by doping with a trivalent impurity. So once we understand the concept, then the questions are easy to answer. Now let us move to the next objective question. That is eighth question. It is seventh question. So which are strongly attracted by the external magnetic field? So strongly attracted here. Which is strongly attracted? Just now we have studied. Ferromagnetic substances are strongly attracted. So let us see. Diamagnetic, paramagnetic, antiferromagnetic and ferromagnetic. So what is the right option? Ferromagnetic substances. Ferromagnetic substances are strongly attracted by the magnetic field. So let us move to the next objective question. MnO is paramagnetic. Here what is given here? MnO is paramagnetic diamagnetic, ferromagnetic, antiferromagnetic. So clearly just now we have studied that MnO is one of the examples for antiferro, where equal number of domains align in the opposite direction. So it is a memory based question. So it is one of the examples for antiferromagnetic substances. Let us move to the next question. Which of the following is ferrimagnetic? Just here some examples are given. We have to find which of them is a ferrimagnetic substance. Iron, FeO, Fe2O3, Fe3O4. So what is the correct option? Fe3O4 is a ferrimagnetic substance. If you take FeO, Fe2O3, these are anti-ferromagnetic substances. So the right option is Fe3O4 is an example for ferrimagnetic substances. Now let us move to the next multiple choice question. Diamagnetic substances have, here what is given? Diamagnetic substance. Just now we have studied the characteristics. Diamagnetic substances have number 1 paired electrons, number 2 unpaired electrons, C both, D none. We know that paired electrons, diamagnetic is due to the absence of unpaired electrons. That means they have only paired electrons, because of which their magnetic momentum will be cancelled and they will have a zero magnetic moment. Let us move to the next question. So this is actually based on the defects of the crystal. Let me write the question here. The composition of a sample is, here one sample is given. The sample is Fe9.32 9. I will write here Fe. The name of the compound is Fe 0.93. This is the name of the compound, composition of the compound. So what is the percentage of iron 3 present in its nearly? So what we have to determine is what is the iron 3 ion present in it. That means what is the percentage of ferric irons in it. Actually here, if you observe here, one iron should have one oxygen. There is no deficiency in oxygens, but in irons you can see the deficiency. Actually the formula will be Fe1O1, that is FeO, but here it is less than 1. So there is a deficiency. Why? Because of the metal deficiency defect. You have learned that in transition elements, some of the metal ions with lower oxidation state will be occupied by the ions with higher oxidation state of the same metal. That means Fe+2 will be occupied by, places of the Fe+2 will be occupied by some of the Fe+3 ions. So that here there is a deficiency of Fe+2 ions. So we have to find what is that percentage of Fe+3, that is iron, ferric iron ions present in it. For that let us solve here. First of all, here oxygen's percentage is 100 here. So because one oxygen is expected, one is present. So here percentage of oxygen is equals to 100%. So charge of oxygen is equals to, what is the charge of oxygen here? One oxygen will have -2 charge here. So here 100% will have -200 units of charge, because twice is the charge. Now this is the charge. Now iron 3 ions we have to calculate. Let us assume that let the number of ferric irons, number of Fe3 ions is equals to X. I am assuming the number of ions is equals to X here. Here it is in percentage wise, what it will become? It is 100%. It is 93%. If you multiply it, it will become 93 into 100, 93. 1 into 100, 100. Oxygen is 100% and here iron is 93%. So but here I am assuming that number of iron 3 ions is X. We have to find the percentage of this iron 3 ions. First we find the number of iron ions. Thereby we can calculate the percentage of iron 3 ions. Now if the number of ions of X is equal, iron 3 is X, what is the total ions of iron here? 93. So what is the remaining will be iron 2 ions. Therefore, number of iron 2 ions, that is ferrous ions, is equals to total is 93, out of which iron 3 ions are ferric ions are X. So the remaining will be ferrous irons, that is 93 minus X. Now the total charge is equals to is positive charge. So how many ions of plus 3 is there? X. So X into plus 3, total charge I am making here. X number of ions into plus 3 charge, plus 93 minus X is the number of ions into what is the charge? It is a plus 2. Total charge will be the sum of the ions of ferric irons and ferrous irons. But this charge is equals to, we all know that number of negative charges is equals to number of positive charge. So here minus 200 units is the negative charge. So the positive charge will be plus 200. So the total positive charge will be plus 200. So if we simplify it here, so we get a 3x. So 93 2's here. That is 186 minus 2x is equals to 200. That implies x is equals to 3x minus 2x is equals to x. And if we transpose this 186 to that side, we will get 14. So what is the number of iron 3 ions? 14. The total ions is 93 here, out of which iron 3 ions is 14. You can calculate even the percentage of iron 2 ions. If you know iron 3 ions percentage, you can calculate the iron 2 ions percentage. One is known, other can be known because only 2 are there. Now what is the percentage of iron 3 ions here? Iron 3 ions. What is the formula for the percentage? Number of ions of iron 3 divided by total ions. What is the total ions here? 93 into 100. So let us cancel it. 93 once here, and it I'll put a 0 here. I'll consider it as 700 here. So nearly 93 sevens, and so let us not bother about the decimals because here nearest value is given. So it is around some 14 ones and 9 8 nearly some 15. So because in the options the percentage is 85, 15, 7, 93. So nearest value is enough because the different values are given. So in this way we have calculated the percentage of iron 3 ion. Just we have assumed X is the number of iron ions, and we have calculated the number of Fe3 ions, ferric ions, and thereby the percentage. So in this way we can calculate the percentage of different ions in any metal deficiency defect. So let us move to the next multiple choice question. In Bragg's equation, n represents, so here small n in Bragg's, what is small n in Bragg's equation? That is the question here. First of all, what is a Bragg's equation? So what we are asked is what is small n in Bragg's equation? Let me write Bragg's equation first and what is the usefulness. And so Bragg's equation is 2d sine theta is equals to n lambda is Bragg's equation. And what are the terminals in it? Actually d is called as distance between the plates or interplanar distance between the planes. Lambda is the wavelength of the X-rays. What are these? For example, if you take a crystal, there will be plates or layers in it. To study the structure of crystals, X-rays are incident on the surface of the crystals. Some X-rays will be incident on the first plane and reflected, and some will go into the crystal and are reflected, and some will go into the deep. So this is the way of X-rays here. So X-rays here, those are incidented on the crystal, and these are the layers. And here the angle of incidence is theta, and the distance between the two plates or planes is d here. And lambda here, lambda is the wavelength here. Lambda is wavelength. And n is called as the order of reflection. So what is n here? Order of reflection. For first order, it is n is equals to 1. For second order, n is equals to 2. It is an integer. So what is the usefulness of a Bragg's equation? If you know the wavelength and n, you can find the interplanar distance between the two planes. Even theta should be known, sine theta. Theta is nothing but the angle of incident here. So here there will be regular reflection. You all know that laws of reflection. Angle of reflection is equal, angle of incident is equals to angle of reflection. And here theta and lambda and n is known, you can find the d value. So what is n here? It is nothing but the order of the reflection. So what is the answer for it? It is option D, not option D. It is option C, order of reflection. So first one is quantum number, second one is number of moles, third one is order of refraction, and D is Avogadro's number. So which one is correct? The third one is correct. So this is a Bragg's equation. Actually, Bragg studied the crystalline structure by using X-rays. So this equation is helpful in determining the interplanar distances of the crystals. Let us go for the next objective question. At what angles for the first order diffraction spacing between the two planes respectively are lambda and lambda by 2? Here spacing between two plates is given. Two plates are taken. The distance between the two places are respectively lambda and lambda by 2. So I will write here lambda and lambda by 2 are the spacing between the plates. Nothing but just now I told you the distance between the two plates is d. The d value is given here. Lambda and lambda 2 are the interplanar distance here. And order of reflection is 1. N is equals to 1. And what is asked? What are the angles? So we have to find the angles of an incident or reflection. And lambda are distance between the two plates. So let us take the case 1. So what we are required to find here? The angle. So according to Bragg's equation, what we know, 2d sine theta is equals to n lambda. But here order is 1. And d value is already known. 2 lambda is equals to n sine theta. Here 1 into lambda and lambda goes here. And you get sine theta is equals to 1 by 2. Theta is equals to sine inverse of 1 by 2. So sine inverse of 1 by 2 is, what is the angle? This angle equal to theta, 30 degrees. Sine 30 is equals to 1 by 2. So sine 30 is the first angle. Next to play distance between the planes is lambda by 2. I will substitute in this one directly. 2 into, this is case 2. So 2 into lambda by 2 is the d value into sine theta is equals to, order is 1 here, into lambda. Lambda cancel, 2 cancel here. Sine theta is equals to 1. Theta is equals to sine inverse 1. So sine 90 is 1. So theta is equals to here, how much here? 90 degrees. So what are the angles here? Two angles for corresponding interplanar distance. Theta is equals to 90, 30 degrees is one angle and 90 degrees is the other angle. What is the right option? Here option C is the right option, that is 30 degrees and 90 degrees. So with this the solid state chapter is completed. Thank you.